Welcome back to the Sidebar. In this episode, your favorite AI hosts have just examined two blog posts by artist Jeremy Brunansky. You'll hear how Brunansky writes about happiness and the choices we make every day. The hosts will even dive into the archetypes of personalities to see how different attitudes can produce similar or different outcomes. Finally, they'll challenge you to examine your own process of decision-making, and perhaps how the decisions you have made, do make, and will make all tie together to create the life you want, not tolerate. Grab your coffee, tea, or wine, and let's find out why you should be following Brunansky's blog. Welcome to episode 7 of The Sidebar.
So it's 2 a.m. The house is completely silent.
Oh yeah, I know where this is going.
Right. You're lying in bed, you're staring at that one dark patch on the ceiling, and your brain is just absolutely screaming.
The universal human reboot screen.
Exactly. It's where we go to torture ourselves with time travel. And you aren't thinking about, your grocery list or even the big meeting tomorrow.
No, of course not.
No, you are mentally replaying a conversation you had like 3 years ago. You're relitigating an argument where you just know you should have said that one witty comeback instead of just standing there.
Or maybe you're obsessing over that 5-year plan you made in your 20s that has just completely fallen apart.
Yes, it's that exact feeling of being stuck in a mental loop. And honestly, that is exactly what we are unpacking today in this deep dive.
It's such a relatable struggle.
It really is. But we aren't doing it by looking at some massive, dry scientific study or a best-selling business book about optimizing your mindset.
Right, no life hacks today.
No life hacks. We are looking at something a little more intimate, honestly, I think a lot more profound. We have these two very personal, highly philosophical blog posts.
Written by Jeremy Brunansky.
Exactly. We've got Day's End, which was published back in April 2013, and Did the Mirror Smile Back from January 2014.
And I have to say, reading through these sources, it felt less like analyzing data and way more like reading someone's private journal.
Yeah, a journal that just happened to contain some really heavy existential truths. And we also have a couple of images associated with these posts that we'll get into, which really add to the whole vibe.
The Robert Frost quote and that really striking smiley face mask image.
We will definitely get to those. But before we get into the heavy stuff, I feel like we need to set the stage on who Brunansky actually is.
Because he isn't just a guy with a keyboard ranting into the void.
Right. Looking at the background materials, he's framed as a bit of a Renaissance man.
He really is. I mean, he's a classical pianist, a jazz percussionist, he's a filmmaker, a photographer.
And he's traveled to nearly all 50 states, which is wild.
It is. And I think that creative background is super crucial for you to keep in mind as you listen to us go through this.
Why is that specific background so important, though? Like, why does it matter that he plays jazz?
Well, because musicians and filmmakers, they fundamentally understand time and framing. They understand that how you look at a scene completely changes the meaning of that scene.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so when Brunansky writes about life, he's not coming from a clinical psychology perspective. He's writing from an artist's perspective.
And a philosophical one, too.
Exactly. He lists influences like Marcus Aurelius and Ralph Waldo Emerson, but also Carl Jung.
That is quite the mix.
It is. You're getting this really unique blend of Stoicism, Transcendentalism, and modern psychology.
It's basically philosophy for people who don't want to read a dry textbook.
Precisely. It's very everyman advice, but with real depth.
So let's just jump into the first piece, Day's End. The core problem he identifies right out of the gate is something I think literally everyone listening has done.
Oh, absolutely.
He writes about the compounding of stress.
This was such a key insight for me. He says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, the stress of our lives we compound by reevaluating past moments of stress.
It's a very specific distinction he's making there.
It is. He acknowledges that we all have what he calls daily predicaments, the flat tire, the rude email, the spilled coffee.
Right, that's just your baseline stress.
But then we take a second step. We go back and try to find better solutions to problems that have already been solved, or at least survived.
It's the mental replay button. We literally try to fix the past.
Which is impossible.
Right. So why do we do that? If the moment is already gone, why does our brain insist on trying to solve it?
I think it's an illusion of control. If I can figure out how I should have handled it, I feel safer somehow.
But Brunansky argues that this is just a massive energy leak.
Total waste of energy. You are burning calories on a timeline that no longer exists.
So what's his solution?
He argues that we need a massive shift in perspective. Instead of addressing past issues, we have to pivot and focus entirely on the future outcome.
Okay, but, and I mean this respectfully, that sounds a little bit like generic self-help advice. Just look forward, don't look back.
It does sound like that at first glance.
Right, so how does he actually suggest we do that practically? Because he proposes two paths forward that, when I first read them, they seemed completely contradictory to me.
They do seem opposed, but they actually function toward the exact same goal. Option 1 is what he calls the temporary retreat.
He says perhaps the best solution for a happier future is temporary retreat from an issue to buy time, allow natural growth.
Allow natural growth. I love that. It's an agricultural metaphor.
How so?
Well, sometimes if you keep picking at a plant or, digging up the seeds to see if they're growing, you're going to kill it.
Right, you have to leave it alone.
Exactly. Sometimes the absolute best move is to step back and just let the dust settle.
So it's not running away.
No, not at all. It's strategic inaction.
Yeah.
You're buying time.
Which definitely appeals to the introvert in me, I won't lie. But then he hits you with option 2, which is the headfirst rush.
Yeah, that one is intense. Rush into a situation and command change and progress now.
It's very aggressive. It's basically kicking the door down. So how can he recommend both of these? One is entirely passive and one is hyperactive. Isn't he just saying, well, do whatever?
I don't think so. The common denominator here, the real core of both options, is agency.
Okay, explain that.
In both scenarios, whether you are retreating or rushing, you are making a conscious choice about the future.
Ah, I see.
You aren't sitting in that chair at 2 a.m. replaying the past.
Yeah.
You are either deliberately buying time for a future result, or you are forcing a future result.
You're breaking the paralysis of the what if.
Exactly. You are taking control of the forward momentum.
And to really anchor this idea, he brings in a heavyweight. He quotes the poet Robert Frost.
Yes, and we actually have a visual source for this part of the post.
We do. It's an image file called frost.png, and it's very stark, black and white, just a silhouette of a person sitting completely alone.
And the text over it reads, "In 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on."
It goes on. It's probably one of the most famous quotes attributed to Frost.
It is, and in this specific context, it's doing a whole lot of heavy lifting for Brunansky's argument.
To be perfectly honest, though, it feels a little bleak, doesn't it? Just, it goes on. It feels almost dismissive, like your pain doesn't matter because the giant machine of the universe just keeps turning.
It can definitely be read that way.
Yeah.
But I think Brunansky views it as incredibly liberating.
Liberating.
Yeah, it's a very stoic concept. The universe is entirely indifferent to your specific embarrassment at that party 3 years ago. The sun still came up, the world kept spinning.
So it actually takes the pressure off of you.
Exactly. If the ultimate outcome of all possible scenarios is simply that life goes on, then the stakes of your specific failure aren't nearly as catastrophic as your 2-aim brain thinks they are.
Wow. Yeah, that shifts the whole perspective.
Brunansky writes, "Make the happiest tomorrows, however you choose. Because at the end of the day, life, it goes on."
It's a real call to action. Time is moving, whether you are sulking in your room or sprinting toward a goal, so you might as well sprint.
Or retreat strategically,
Yeah.
as long as you aren't just stagnant and stuck in the past.
Okay, so Day's End is basically the strategy for resilience. It's about how to shake off the burden of the past.
Right.
Now, let's fast forward about 9 months to the second blog post we're looking at today. Did the mirror smile back?
This one feels quite different. The tone really shifts from that strategic resilience to deep, deep introspection,
He starts it off with this concept of dynamic change.
which is really just a very polite way of saying chaos.
Yeah, seriously. He lists all these major life-altering events: relocation, marriage, divorce, a new job, a near-death experience.
And he makes the point that it's nearly impossible to go through a human life without experiencing this kind of dynamic change.
And this is where he really tackles the myth of that 5-year plan we talked about earlier. We love our plans so much. We love to think, first I get the degree, then I get the job, then the house, then the happiness.
It's very linear thinking.
But Brunansky is saying that dynamic change is the force that completely shatters that linearity. Life does not care about your timeline.
Not at all. And this leads to what I genuinely think is the most insightful part of this entire deep dive.
The 4 scenarios.
Yes. Brunansky breaks down the different ways people relate to happiness when their plans inevitably get messed up.
Yeah.
He lays out these 4 archetypes of how we basically delay or destroy our own joy.
And I have to be completely honest with you, I felt a little called out by a couple of these.
Oh, they are painfully accurate. I think we need to walk through them because I guarantee you every single listener is going to identify with at least one of these.
Let's do it. Okay, scenario 1, the future focused.
Right. This is the person who is actively unhappy right now. They dislike their job, their apartment, their current shape, whatever it is.
But they just push through it.
They endure it because they have totally convinced themselves that happiness is a destination. They are grinding today for a payoff that might happen in 5 or 10 years.
It's the classic I'll be happy when syndrome. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when the kids are finally out of the house.
Exactly. They are treating the present moment as a waiting room. They are basically trading their actual current life for a hypothetical future.
Which is incredibly dangerous because, as we just established with dynamic change, the future might not look anything like you think it will.
Exactly. You might be grinding for a future that never arrives.
Okay, scenario 2, the fear of loss.
Now, this one is tricky because on the surface, this person seems completely fine. You actually are happy right now. You genuinely like your situation.
So what's the problem?
The problem is you are paralyzed by the terror that it will end. So instead of growing or taking any new risks, you refuse to rock the boat. You actively stagnate just to protect what you already have.
Oh, this is the golden handcuffs.
Yes, exactly.
You stay in the job you've outgrown because you're scared you won't ever find another one that pays as well. Or you stay in a relationship that's just okay because you're terrified of having to start over and be alone.
It's fear masquerading as contentment. You aren't actually moving forward. You're just gripping the steering wheel so tightly your knuckles are white, hoping you don't crash.
Oh, wow. Okay, scenario 3, and this is the one that really blew my mind when I read it. Comfort in sorrow.
This is a profound psychological insight. Very Jungian, honestly.
Read what he says about it.
He writes, "You might never see happiness in your life or future, and persist on the comfort of familiarity, because in your sorrow, you are happy because it's all you know."
Wait, let's unpack that for a second. How can you possibly be happy in sorrow? That seems like a complete oxymoron.
Right. Well, it's not joyful happiness. It's the happiness of safety. The known hell is better than the unknown heaven. If you've been struggling for a really long time, that struggle literally becomes your identity. It's predictable.
Oh, I see.
You know exactly how to be the victim or the struggling artist or the misunderstood genius. Changing that, even if it's changing for the better, feels deeply unsafe because it's entirely new.
So people will actively choose misery just because it's familiar.
They choose predictability. And sometimes misery is the most predictable thing they have in their lives. It's exactly why people self-sabotage when things finally start going well for them.
Because they don't recognize the feeling of success.
Exactly. It feels alien, so they retreat right back to the sorrow they understand.
That is, wow, that is dark. But I completely get it. It's so much easier to complain about your life than to actually do the terrifying work of changing it.
It really is.
Okay, finally, scenario 4. The martyr.
Forgo things that could make you additionally happy for the increased happiness of others.
Parents, I feel like you're all nodding your heads right now.
Oh, for sure. And it's a noble path. Brunansky absolutely acknowledges that. But he still lists it as a trap.
Why is it a trap if it's noble?
Because very often, martyrdom is just another clever way to displace responsibility for your own happiness.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If I give absolutely everything I have to everyone else, I never have to sit down and do the really hard work of asking what I actually want out of life.
It's the ultimate deflection. I can't be happy right now. I'm way too busy making you happy.
Exactly. Now, if you look at all 4 of these scenarios, do you notice the overarching pattern?
We are putting happiness somewhere we can't touch it.
Yes. We put it way off in the future, we lock it in the past, or we hand it over to someone else.
So if we are doing all these complex mental gymnastics just to avoid being happy in the present moment, what is the actual alternative here?
Well, Brunansky brings up a quote by a Scottish poet named Alexander Smith to kind of frame this.
Right. The quote is, "We are never happy. We can only remember that we were so once."
And Brunansky absolutely hates this quote. He rejects it entirely.
He calls it postulating happiness.
Right. Because if you actually believe Smith, you are condemning yourself to never, ever enjoying the present moment. You're only allowed to enjoy the memory of the moment later on.
It's like when you go to a concert and you spend the entire time recording it on your phone instead of actually watching the band play.
That is the perfect analogy. You're saving it for later, but you are completely missing the reality of the experience as it happens.
So Brunansky directly challenges the reader here, and I think this is really the core mission of this second post. He asks, are you happy? In your life at this moment, are you happy?
Not will you be happy, not were you happy, but are you happy right now?
And this brings us to the second visual source we have for this deep dive, the image file called smile.png.
Yes, you should describe this for the listener because it's a pretty weird image out of context.
It is jarring. It's a photograph of a man, presumably Brunansky himself, wearing this striped polo shirt. He's standing in what looks like a very bland beige office space, but you can't see his actual face.
Right, because he's covering it.
He is holding up a cardboard cutout of a bright yellow smiley face right over his own head.
At first glance, it really looks like a visual representation of fake it till you make it. It looks like masking.
Yeah, that was my first thought too. But given everything we just talked about regarding his overall philosophy, I really don't think he's telling us to just put on a fake face and pretend everything is fine.
I don't think so either. I think it directly connects to his closing advice in the post, where he says, smile freely because life is short.
Okay, so how does that tie into the mask?
When you look at the whole dynamic change concept, life throwing you curveballs, your 5-year plans falling apart left and right, sometimes finding a smile has to be a deliberate act of will.
So the cardboard smile isn't a mask to hide behind, it's a projection.
It's pure intention. He tells the reader to find a reason to smile. That phrasing implies that it requires an active search. It's not a passive state.
Right, happiness isn't just something that magically happens to you when all the conditions of your life are perfectly aligned.
Exactly. For Brunansky, happiness is something you have to actively generate, even when you just stand around in a boring office wearing a polo shirt.
Smile freely because life is short, and we must not waste it with frowns. It's such simple, almost childlike advice. But coming right after that heavy psychological analysis of how we sabotage ourselves, it feels really earned.
It does feel earned. And I actually want to try to synthesize these two posts for a second.
Yeah, go for it. Connect the dots for us.
Because if we look at Day's End and Did the Mirror Smile Back together as a pair, we actually get a really complete operating system for dealing with life.
Okay, how so?
Well, Day's End is fundamentally about resilience.
Yeah.
It's about accepting that the past is dead and the future is coming, whether you like it or not, so you have to keep moving forward.
What?
But then, Did the Mirror Smile Back? It's about awareness. It's about having the presence of mind to stop in the middle of all that forward movement and ask yourself, am I actually enjoying the ride?
So it's basically move forward, but don't forget to look around while you're doing it.
Exactly. Because if you only focus on the Day's End philosophy, the idea that it goes on, you risk becoming that future-focused person who is never happy right now. You're always just chasing the next thing.
But if you only focus on the happiness in the present moment and ignore the forward momentum, you might get stuck in that comfort and sorrow or that fear of loss trap we talked about.
Precisely. You really need both. You need the aggressive momentum of Day's End and the acute present awareness of the mirror.
That makes total sense when you put it that way. And he actually has a very specific call to action at the end of the second post that I found really charming. It's very indicative of that 2014 internet era.
Oh, the email invitation, yes.
Yes. He actively tells his readers to go out and seek like-minded people, but also to not neglect individuals whose differences brighten your life.
I love that distinction.
Me too. You need similar souls for comfort, but you need different souls for growth. And then he says, and this is a quote, "If you have the time, feel free to email me and share a moment of happiness."
It's just so wholesome. But it's also highly strategic on his part.
Strategic.
He's actively trying to break the reader's isolation. If happiness is something we have to generate through an act of will, it's a lot easier to generate when you share it with someone else. He genuinely wants to know if the mirror smiled back for you.
It validates the idea that we really aren't alone in these mental loops. We're all fighting the same battles.
Exactly.
So bringing this all back to you, the listener, why does this actually matter? Why should you care about 2 philosophical blog posts written by a guy over a decade ago?
Because the core problems he's talking about haven't changed at all. In fact, you could argue they've gotten significantly worse.
Oh, definitely.
We have so many more distractions now. We have more replay buttons with our social media archives constantly reminding us of the past. We have way more pressure to project the perfect 5-year plan on places like LinkedIn.
Oh, absolutely. And if your personal 5-year plan didn't account for, say, a global pandemic or massive economic shifts, you know exactly what dynamic change feels like firsthand.
We are all dealing with dynamic change constantly. The real value here is applying critical thinking to your own emotional baseline. You really have to sit down and ask yourself the hard questions.
Like which archetype you are.
Right. Am I the person enduring misery today for a payoff that might never actually come? Am I clinging to a comfortable sorrow just because I'm scared of the unknown?
Or am I brave enough to intentionally put on the smile and make the happiness real today?
It's a serious reality check. We have to stop waiting for the conditions to be absolutely perfect to allow ourselves to be happy. Because, as Robert Frost reminds us, while we're sitting around waiting,
It goes on.
it goes on without us if we let it.
And that brings me to one final thought that I really want to leave you with today. We talked earlier about that Alexander Smith quote, the one Brunansky hated.
That we are never happy, we can only remember that we were.
Right. Which we agreed was a total downer of a perspective.
It is a massive downer. But let's just play devil's advocate for a second. Let's really think about it. If Smith is right, and human beings only have the capacity to appreciate happiness in retrospect, doesn't that mean we are constantly missing our own lives?
We're just creating nostalgia for a future version of ourselves to look back on.
Exactly. We are living as ghosts in our own present.
That is genuinely terrifying.
It is. But if Brunansky is right, and I tend to lean toward his side here, if the act of smiling, even when it's behind a literal cardboard mask, even when it takes immense effort, if that is a valid form of generating happiness,
Then maybe faking it isn't actually fake at all.
right, maybe the effort you put in to be happy is the happiness.
Yeah.
Maybe the actual struggle to find the smile is the entire point of the exercise.
So the pursuit of happiness isn't just the path to the catch. The pursuit is the catch.
Just something for you to mull over the next time you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m.
That is definitely a lot to think about. I think I'm going to go find a mirror right now and just see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Jeremy Brunansky.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for listening.
We really hope this helps you navigate your own dynamic changes. See you next time.